But it's like as people then start to read about it a little more and they hear about what's in this medium of growth,
right?
They're going to be like, whoa, give me the hormones and give me the antibiotics.
Right.
I don't want this fetal bovine serum that's, it's going to be...
This is Generation Health. Each week we bring you the latest in news, cutting-edge research, and time-tested best practices helping you live a longer, better life. Sitting across from me, Dante DiMatteo, registered pharmacist, certified strength and conditioning specialist. I'm Tyler Andrews, your host, and now on a third mic, we threatened it. It's happening.
Yes.
Josiah.
In the dark back here. Here I am.
That's enough out of you.
Yep.
Is the back of the head camera on?
It is. Yeah.
Nice.
He is being recorded.
We should put like a mask on the back of your head.
I'm back here.
A back mask.
If you if you recognize the back of that head out in public, make sure you say hi to Josiah.
We should just get a picture of my face and put it on the back of my head.
Yeah, you got a double. You got a two-face.
Yes.
All right, so being serious for a second, back to the show. We're going to talk about back to school, and I know it's a little late for that, but bear with us. It's worth repeating. We're talking about lab-grown meat. Ain't that fun? And we've got time. If we've got time, we've got a listener question we're going to drop in here. But first, what we really want to talk about, what have you been doing all summer? What was the best thing you did?
The best thing that I did was probably our family vacation to Rehoboth.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was a good time.
Yeah?
Definitely. Rehoboth is always a nice... It has some historical significance, I guess, to our family. We've been going there off and on for quite a few years. So
yeah.
That was a lot of fun. They have a really good gym down there that I like to go to. So it doesn't feel like I get too far out of my routine. So it's exciting in that way.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
That is very, very cool. Do you do anything in particular? Are there any, other than the gym and the beach, is there anything in particular about Rehoboth that is the best?
They're the arcade and the amusement, it's like a small amusement park.
Yeah.
It's called Funland.
All the nieces,
name. Yeah, all the nieces and nephews like going there, so that is always a lot of fun. Still fun for Nicole and I too.
Yeah,
I would say. Yeah, there's what do we play? Oh, I always see how many basketballs we can win. So this year I think we won like 7. Like
Are you serious?
At the different basketball. Yeah,
you have 7 basketballs from Rehoboth.
There maybe a little bit less, but it was.
What do you do with them all?
they're just rolling around in the garage.
Do you need a basketball, Josiah?
We've got a few at our house with the boys, but
we'll
take some more.
We'll take some more.
We'll take some more.
What'd you do for summer?
We went similar to Dante. We did a family vacation, but it was the first time in a few years that we just went our family.
Yeah.
Usually we go with like in-laws or my family, something like that. But just me, Heather, the 4 boys, New Smyrna Beach, Florida.
Nice.
Yeah, the boys were not thrilled to find out New Smyrna is like the shark capital of the world.
Oh,
I had no idea. Everyone felt the liberty to just tell us that in front of our boys, and they were freaked out.
Daddy Shark.
Yeah, no, 100%. But we didn't. So it's maybe 30 minutes outside of Daytona Beach.
And you flew, right? Because with 4 kids,
we drove. Oh yeah.
Unreal.
Wow.
Yeah, we broke it up on the way down in between, but on the way back, Daddy Shark drove straight through.
That's amazing.
Straight through 17 hours.
That's unreal.
You're a better man than me.
Oh
I
man.
don't think I could do it. No way.
Well, anyway.
I not that I'm trying to trump
Nobody
you guys.
asked.
I also went to the beach on a different continent.
Oh.
The wife and I celebrating technically our 21st anniversary, but it was kind of to replace our 20th anniversary that I royally messed up. So we went to Barcelona, Spain.
Oh.
And we've never traveled internationally, really. We've never done anything super fun like that. Our kids are a little bit older, so getting away was a little easier. So we went to Barcelona, and I will talk all about it later on another episode. So just keep coming back. One of these episodes
What was your favorite part?
Oh, stop it, both of you. No, the best thing in Barcelona, I mean, Sagrada Familia. It's kind of the Eiffel Tower is to Paris as Sagrada Familia is to Barcelona.
It's a great, like, melty looking building. It looks like it's melting.
It does kind of look like it's melting. That's a good point. It is amazing. And, I don't know if it's one of the wonders of the modern world, but it should be. It's incredibly moving. And I cried a lot when I was there because I'm an emotional person. So
you had a pretty wild weekend in Ibiza too, right?
I did not, as a matter of fact. There were no pills, nothing like that. We just lost half the audience. They don't know what we're talking about.
That is a song lyric.
That is a song lyric.
Just to be clear.
A song lyric.
Yeah. All right. So
we'll play it. We'll link it in the description below.
No, we will not. Nope.
Link in the description.
All right. Let's get serious. Let's get on to the serious stuff. Nobody else cares about our vacation. Let's talk about lab-grown meat, which sounds super appetizing, right? All right, here's an article. This is from the AP. The article is called U.S. Approves Chicken Made from Cultivated Cells. For the first time, U.S. regulators approved the sale of chicken made from animal cells, allowing 2 California companies to offer lab-grown meat to the nation's restaurants, tables, and eventually supermarket shelves. The Agricultural Department gave the green light to Upside Foods and Good Meat. Those are both companies. Firms that had been racing to be the first in the U.S. to sell meat that doesn't come from slaughtered animals, what is now being referred to as cell-cultivated or cultured meat, as it emerges from the laboratory and arrives on dinner plates. I don't know about you guys, but cultured meats sounds like meat that reads books. Maybe
That's why I was
opera. Yeah. Back to the article. The move launches a new era of meat production aimed at eliminating harm to animals and drastically reducing the environmental impact of grazing, growing food for animals, and animal waste. Cultivated meat is grown in steel tanks using cells that come from living animals, a fertilized egg, or a special bank of stored cells. In Upside's case, that's one of the companies, it comes out in large sheets that are then formed into shapes like chicken cutlets and sausages. Good Meat, that's the other company, which already sells cultivated meat in Singapore, the first country to allow it, turns masses of chicken cells into cutlets, nuggets, shredded meat, and sautés. And another article from Yahoo went into a little bit more detail about the production here. This is lab-grown meat could end up on your plate any day now. And we have a bunch of articles. I'm just picking a couple of highlights here. This is the process. It says the process of growing animal meat without the rest of the animal involves taking a biopsy of living tissue, placing those cells into culture, then a nutrient bath, and getting those cells to differentiate into muscle and fat. Some processes even exercise those cells to get them to build muscle fibers similar to those in a living animal. All of that takes energy, effort, and technological know-how. Okay, that's enough. We can comment on this. Dante, this is disgusting. Right?
It's funny you say that because as you read a little bit about this, that sort of sentiment is definitely one of the drawbacks.
Yeah, we all saw Soylent Green. We know it. We know.
Mm-hmm. Wait, what'd you say?
Soylent Green? You're not old enough. Oh, God.
What is that?
It's from a movie from the 70s with Charlton Heston, and the punchline is Soylent Green is people. It doesn't matter. Don't waste the time.
Soylent Green.
Soylent Green.
Oh man. Yeah.
Yeah.
It is like Soylent Green.
No, it's not. It's not like Soylent Green. Soylent Green is people. This is chicken. No, seriously, it sounds really gross and weird. Tell me this is not just weird Frankenstein chicken.
Yeah, again, it definitely feels weird, but I think from a broad perspective, it definitely makes sense. It's not a new concept. For example, I caught this in a little bit of reading that Winston Churchill, in one of his works from 1931, actually put forth the idea. I don't know how he got here to comment on this type of subject, but it was interesting. Again, in 1931, we shall escape the absurdity of growing a whole chicken to eat the breast or wing by growing these parts separately under a suitable medium. So the thought of it, again, has been around for quite some time.
Wow. Really?
It's crazy. It was, again, an unlikely suspect to have commented on something like this. But sure enough, in the last 5 to 10 years, we've seen more and more research in this regard come to take shape. Startups are popping up, obviously, as you mentioned. And again, it feels weird, and that is definitely going to be one of the biggest drawbacks as it makes its way into the market, in a more widespread sense. But again, it makes sense just given how much meat that we are consuming just as a broad population.
Yeah.
So, I mean, that's my generic answer to
this
that
is kind of the inevitable direction of things.
Yes. Yeah. So I guess to answer it a little more directly, like what is wrong with this? I suppose we could talk about some of the negatives.
Yeah. Go for it.
Again, I think the consumer hesitancy, as we mentioned, is going to be a huge problem. Kind of like this psychological component.
Yeah.
Feels unnatural. A lot of those who listen to this show have a bias towards natural products and natural ways of addressing health issues, for better or for worse.
Right.
But that is going to be something that hinders the adoption of this.
I mean, if we're supposed to be getting out of factory farming and going back to organic things, this seems like the extreme other end of that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. And I don't know how to answer that or address that without being overly philosophical, but
I mean, that's part of the point.
Yeah. Yeah. But we're so far away from quote unquote natural way of living at this point, across the board. I mean, if you just look at what you do on a daily basis, it is a million times different than it was, 100 years ago, 500 years ago, 1,000 years ago.
Yeah.
So things are immensely different. We're, kind of blowing through resources much differently. And as far as this specific product being natural versus unnatural, it's still being cultivated from a living organism. This isn't plant-based. This isn't ultra processed food. This isn't a donut. This isn't a, chicken patty. I mean, this is literally going to be a chicken breast or ground chicken or ground beef, a beef tenderloin. It's going to be what it is. It's just that it's coming from a different sort of place.
You hit on two things there that I think are really relevant. Number one, this is not a plant-based, this is not a meat alternative. This is meat. So if you're a vegetarian or vegan, you're still out when it comes to this stuff. Mm-hmm. But that's an interesting point. It is literally just the cells. Mm-hmm. So I guess in a sense, it's possible that this could be less chemically filled than the chicken breast you buy at the grocery store now. I mean, is that possible?
Yeah. The biggest difference there would be, as far as the meat that we're buying from the, currently the antibiotics and those sorts of things that are being used to prevent us from consuming, dangerous pathogens.
Yeah.
I mean, that's probably the most glaring sort of chemical additive that we see with, meat in that respect. Makes a lot of people very uncomfortable. But again, you just look at the epidemics basically that have come from foodborne pathogens.
Yeah.
And so you understand the need for it.
Right.
Now with this sort of meat, it doesn't look, with this cultivated meat or this cultured meat, doesn't appear that the antibiotic use and sort of chemical additives after the fact are going to be necessary. I think we'll get to it, but a lot of the chemical makeup, so to speak, is involved in more of the actual manufacturing process and the medium that's required to grow it, where some of these base ingredients come from, the chemical makeup of that sort of stuff might make people a little bit uneasy. So on one hand, yes, it's going to be chemical sparing at the end product, but at the same time, there's a lot of chemicals that go into it from the beginning. But,
okay, so
which I kind of personally, it's whatever, dude. It's just, there's a lot of unnatural and natural chemicals. Everything's a chemical
at this point.
But yeah.
There are a few different articles that just saying 10 reasons why cultivated meat is the future of protein. And they point to it's hormone free is one. It's antibiotic free is another one. And there's been a few different articles that cite both of those things. So, I mean, that's a huge, for a lot of, it's
a good point.
There's a lot of bad with the good in that case. Those are key examples, but it's as people then start to read about it a little more and they hear about what's in the, what's what's in this medium of growth,
Right.
they're going to be like, whoa, give me the hormones and give me the antibiotics.
Right.
I don't want this fetal bovine serum. That's, it's going to be, you'll start to hear all types of stuff.
Okay. So what is that? Go ahead.
Yeah, no, we'll get there for show. I wanted to hit a couple more of these negatives real quick.
Okay. Right.
Which we've sort of, touched, but the second one, in addition to consumer hesitancy, is just availability. So
right now,
how can this be scaled? We're a ways off from this truly being scaled, just with the sheer requirement of factories that are going to be needed to support, the amount of meat to be produced that could theoretically mimic that of which is being produced more conventionally.
Right.
So that's a huge problem. Secondary to availability would be just the sheer fact of consumer cost going up as a reflection of the, low availability.
Which is interesting.
Mm-hmm.
It costs more to create a chicken cutlet in a lab than it does to raise a living animal from egg to maturity, slaughtering it and processing it and taking it to market. That's cheaper than it is to just make it in a factory currently.
Right. Exactly. And the reason being, from my understanding, is that this process that we're looking at here is more like pharmaceutical manufacturing than it is like food processing. And so the growth media, the sourcing of these materials, the equipment, those sorts of things are just so complicated, so pricey, so new, that even scaling the material and, producing the materials needed to make this, still very much in its infancy. So the critiques that I saw is the more that this becomes like a food making industry versus a pharmaceutical industry, the less we can see the cost coming down less. The more it becomes like a food process,
it becomes
food manufacturing process,
reasonably priced.
Yes, we're still, it's still a long ways off, and they're not really so sure if it'll ever meet the exact cost of a conventionally farmed ground meat product. But it's got to move that way. And then the final, I would say, category of negative would be the things we already mentioned, and those are the safety concerns. So even though the foodborne pathogens from like the animal sources are going to be less because they're just coming from a different place, we still don't know how to address the potential for these novel pathogens. So pathogens that can arise in this new novel manufacturing process as
kind
it
of
is.
The unknown.
Yeah. So while the meat that we're currently producing conventionally, they do add antibiotics, for example, to prevent this sort of stuff from occurring, there's probably going to be some sort of antibiotic use to treat the equipment, to treat the media. And again, I don't, that's not like a evidence-based way to say that per se, but there's going to be, at some point we're going to see certain things with this that probably reveal the need for some sort of antimicrobial use, which is good. We can't have fungal overgrowth and yeast and all sorts of potential things, because again, it still is eventually going to become a food product.
Right.
It's just, we don't know exactly
what could happen as a result of that. That's a good point. And you said this is not ultra processed. I mean, this sounds to me kind of like the definition of ultra processed.
Yeah. Yeah. It's definitely, you could argue that it's a semantics thing.
Right.
So yes, like this is a process. Like they're cultivating this meat. It is a very, sorry, I keep kicking you.
It's okay. We can play footsie under the table. It's fine.
Oh, you're leaving me out back here. I got no one to play footsie with me back here.
I'd have to really reach for you, Josiah. But
it's not ultra processed.
It's not ultra processed. There's a whole separate classification that at some point we did talk about in terms of food processing. When we just to review that, when we think of ultra processed foods, those are foods that have added salt, sugar, fats, artificial colors and flavors, all the things that, increase how good the food tastes. So
you could make an ultra processed food out of your lab grown chicken.
Exactly.
But coming out of the lab, it is not ultra processed.
Exactly. So again, processing just refers to washing, cleaning, milling, cutting, chopping, heating, pasteurizing, blanching, cooking, all of those sorts of things. There's variant levels of processing.
Right.
Those are just some of the ways in which they're processed. But
and you don't want unprocessed meat, whether it's grown from a lab or a chicken,
right,
because that's how you get bacteria and die.
Exactly. Exactly. So yes, the short answer is it's not processed in the classification that we're accustomed to looking at.
Got it. So you just covered the downsides. What are the major upsides here? It's friendlier for the environment, right?
So that's one of the goals from it. But from my understanding, that's another area of this that's just not black and white. So straight away, cultivated meat, it does, in the production of it, it does use less land and less water than conventional means. But at the same time, it emits like 25 times as much of the greenhouse gases.
Really?
In that, in the process. And again, this sort of comes back to like the pharmaceutical manufacturing nature of this.
Sure.
And it has to do with the byproducts of the growth medium that's being used, and it has all to do with that. And so again, while we're using less land, these factories are using less land, less water. It's more vertical in nature. You can, do it in a smaller amount of space.
Yeah.
Just a lower, physical footprint. It's still just, it's potentially worse from a, from a carbon dioxide.
Certainly in the short
effect.
term.
Yes.
Yeah.
If the ingredients and the methods of this cultured meat process, if it were to shift and change to a more of like a, food-based processing arena, then you would see the potential for these emissions to decrease almost to the other side. Then as we improve these methods, as they improve these methods, then we could see it's using less land, it's using less water, and it's not emitting as much of the greenhouse gases as well. So
that makes sense.
So you hear it and you think, oh my gosh, like there's not going to be all the farming and but it's still not harmless in nature.
Right.
But again, that's one small, piece of the puzzle there for sure.
And for the folks that care about, animal rights and stuff, I've got vegans in my family. Animals aren't harmed in the production of this. So, if you care about that. Now, I'm sorry, but if you've ever looked a cow in the eyes, I have a hard time believing that they're sentient. But that's just me. That's just me. I'm a horrible person. I acknowledge this.
No, I like the appeal to emotion.
Yeah.
Of, watching some of how crappy these farming practices are and how they treat animals and the tight living conditions. Man, like, and I know you're just kind of, I know you're saying that in jest, but yeah, it is really crazy.
Yeah.
And it honestly, it has made me, I don't know how much of a difference I'm making, but like the last year or two, I'm 100% eating less meat. And that's from a multitude of reasons. I wasn't even necessarily that familiar with the cultivated meat process.
Right.
But I think that is an important part. If we can somehow this is never going to overtake conventionally farmed meat. But if you can say, oh, wow, this is at some point, if this becomes more affordable and a percentage of the meat that we're buying, if we eat meat once or twice a day, like if a percentage of that is coming from a cultivated process, then hey, maybe that improves the conventionally farmed meat, the animals' living conditions and such. So I think that's a massive, I don't know how we made it this far without mentioning that. I think those involved with animal conservation and humane farming and all that kind of stuff, I think this has to be a huge step forward for them. Yeah. Definitely.
So it's not as scary as it sounds, but we do have 3D printed plant nuggets. We have insect-based options. And now we have Franken chicken.
Yeah.
Josiah, would you eat it?
I'd give it a shot.
Yeah?
I'd try it. Heck yeah, why not? Well, so take the leap of faith, Joe.
So
take the leap.
That AP article, they just put out as of 6 days ago.
Oh.
At the time of this recording anyway, they put out a kind of like a debunking claim. So I guess there's been these claims on social media that the cultivated meat is from
the cult
is from human cells.
What?
Oh.
Yeah, and so there's this whole theory. It says lab grown meat is using cells from human cells.
Guys,
Because they're trying. It says lab-grown meat chicken was recently approved and sold, grown from human cells. Research it, says one Facebook post that has grown in popularity. But then they debunk the claim, saying that this is false. It's made from chicken cells. The chicken in the case, but
if it sounds insane, it probably is. Nobody is
unreal.
making lab-grown human meat for you to eat. That's awful. They do.
They might say, how do you know?
Hannibal Lecter's new.
Now, the difference is they do make, there's a way that they actually 3D print like tissue for, you can have like an ear reconstructed or part of a nose reconstructed where they take a sample of your own cells, they cultivate them, and then they like 3D print a piece that can kind of help grow back in. That's crazy cutting edge stuff.
Yeah.
But it's not to be eaten.
Don't eat that.
That's
Don't
gross.
eat the ear.
Gosh.
Yeah. The
Don't believe everything you read on Facebook.
Oh my
please.
goodness.
Josiah, that reminded me. We glossed over the cell culture media or the growth media.
Yeah,
which has,
let's talk about that real quick.
Yeah. So quickly, there's two components of this growth media or liquid essentially that the meat begins to differentiate and proliferate into tissue. So the basal media is the first part that contains all the essential nutrients, the glucose, the amino acids.
So the things the cells need that would typically be delivered
Vitamins,
by
yes.
by a
It's almost
vein.
it's almost like blood. It's like a blood supply.
Right.
Yeah. So that's one part. You're exactly right. Good way to think of it. The second part are these added factors, and these are the ones that get all of the, the hype and the hysteria and the human derived cells, all that stuff. The added factors are ultimately the ones that allow for the proliferation and the differentiation of these cells. So you need things like growth factors and hormones and things that are normally present in the body to help tissue grow and change and specify. These are commonly animal derived.
Okay.
So if you are somebody who was looking at this from the perspective that this was from, this is a more humane way to eat meat and to produce meat, well, because of this, this notion kind of flies in the face of what this is touted to do when these factors are animal derived. The staple serum that's been used, the FBS or the fetal bovine serum that I, mentioned,
Yeah.
that was the most commonly harvested serum to, again, be incorporated in this process. And the serum was taken from bovine fetuses, pregnant cows, basically. So during the slaughter, if they found that the cow was pregnant, they were able to extract the serum from the fetus. So it's pretty nasty and vile sounding.
Crazy.
So you're thinking, how is this better?
Yeah, that doesn't
it's
sound better at all.
It's this rare, expensive material that still comes from animals being slaughtered. It's in my mind, it was very odd. But one of the companies that you mentioned, there's another company, so Upside Foods, Eat Just, they are already using and coming up with different mediums that by the time their product is fully accessible in the mass market, I want to say that they'll be past animal-derived serums. So that's a huge step. And so again, that is a very valid critique of that FBS. I mean, it's weird. You can go online and buy it.
Can you really?
Yeah, it's like any sort of
Not on our website.
on AskJoeDiMatteo.com.
No.
Oh my goodness.
No.
No. So again, the Eat Just company, they've already successfully used a non-animal derived serum in 2023. So
good. Okay.
whenever you start, again, like the fetal bovine serum is going to be something that you hear about as a very stark negative. And in my opinion, I think, again, if you're going to go down this route of non-animal based sourcing, you got to try to find a substitute for that. So again, I think they're already finding the substitute. I think it's all good.
So it's one of those things that, yes, it's true right now. Long term, it probably won't be.
Just like the greenhouse gases emissions and sort of thing. It's like, yes, we're not really going to be saving the environment right now if these factories started to pop up, but eventually as we improve and adapt and learn and a couple factories pop up here and there, inevitably things will change, I think.
Makes sense.
But Yeah.
All right. Well,
Oh yeah, and the Good Food Institute. This is actually a reminder for myself. The GFI, the Good Food Institute.
yes.
They have a ton of good resources and information about this stuff, like very non-sensationalized. It's not even all about lab cultivated meat, but I actually subscribe because I'm sure we'll find some interesting topics from there.
Sure.
So it was cool. So if you want to read more about this, skip the Twitter.
Don't get it
links.
from social media. Yes.
Don't get it on social media. Just start with Good Food Institute. They're a pretty like neutral organization. Obviously, it's a non-industry, I believe.
Yeah.
So it's check it out.
That's good. That's good. That's man.
We were gonna cultivate a chicken for Josiah to eat on air, but
Oh man,
we ran out of time.
I'd go for it.
I'm about to take your microphone away.
We could do like a hot ones.
Yeah,
We could do
that
that.
competition.
Like,
We could do that.
Tyler did a hot ones.
I did,
and it was cultivated meat.
No,
hot
it was
ones.
not. Nope.
It was like a $30,000 hot ones.
Which no, that's the last point. If you want to try this stuff, hopefully you live either in Singapore or in San Francisco, because those are the only two places that you can get them right now, and only in a restaurant. There's you can't get it on store shelves or anything like that.
Yeah, right now you're eating it with like the
very small forks,
yeah
pinky up,
baby forks.
very expensive stuff. So if you were excited about it, don't get too excited. Your chicken's fine for right now.
Mm-hmm.
All right, so let's talk about back to school, which at this point, it's not back to school. We're already back to school, but it's worth discussing transitional periods, and we're going to have fall break, and that's going to mess with things, and there's going to be Christmas break and all of that stuff. So let's talk through dealing with kids and transitions from off time to school time or back to school, however you want to call it.
Back to school. That was almost another Billy Madison reference.
We haven't recorded any Billy Madison references yet, so let's keep it at 0.
Yeah, when looking at back to school recommendations, it's probably best if we just try to approach it in 3 different categories.
Okay.
At least to give us some constraint here. So
Yeah.
lifestyle and behavior would be in one category. Nutrition is one category. And then just general support. So like supplements and all the detail sort of stuff. So those 3 big categories.
Miscellany.
Yes, exactly. Miscellany.
All right.
Miscellany.
So where do you want to tackle first?
Let's start with lifestyle and behavior.
Okay.
The
So
first,
spank them all soundly and send them to bed. Right?
Yes.
yeah.
See?
If it works,
The parents on the side. This is how it's done.
it doesn't work in my house, but if it
It
works,
never worked in
You
my
gotta lay
house.
down. You gotta lay down the law.
Oh my gosh. No, go ahead. Sorry. This is terrible. Let's stay focused.
So with lifestyle and behavior, whether it's back to school or not, we often start with sleep.
Yep.
And so we've done a deep dive on sleep, and we did talk about recommendations for children there as well.
Right.
But specifically in this context, adequate sleep is a surefire way, just to review, a surefire way to help the immune system, improve behavior, improve school performance and memory,
Yep.
and improve general mental health. So with those 4 sort of points, I mean, sleep is like I would say the most important part of this whole discussion.
It's the lever that's moving the most.
Yes, it doesn't mean it's easy. Again, as you guys were joking, I mean, I have no idea how you as parents can consistently make this happen.
We can talk about
but
that
we can
in
at
a
least,
minute.
we can talk about it. So firstly, I think if we start with the amount of sleep,
Yeah, I was going to say, how much should kids get?
in a perfect world, we'll talk about amount. So I got these numbers from the Sleep Foundation, which I go to often for sleep sort of cut points. Preschool aged kids, 10 to 13 hours per night. School aged children, 6 to 12 years old, 9 to 12 hours of sleep.
Okay, so 6 to 12 is elementary and middle school.
Mm-hmm.
And you said 9 to 12 hours?
Mm-hmm.
And that's just kind of based on the kid and the age.
Exactly. And so that will, that'll include naps as well as their normal nightly sleep.
So as they get older, they theoretically need a little bit less sleep.
Theoretically, yes.
And then what about teenagers?
And so teenagers, it's a little bit less. It's like it's into that 8 to 10 hour range. So it's just a very slight. There's overlap in all of these kind of arbitrary.
Yeah, and it is arbitrary.
Yeah.
If a kid's going through a growth spurt or something, they need more sleep. There's all kinds of things like that can factor in.
Yeah, and I guess the key point there is that it's all more than what's recommended of, maybe adults our age. Things change and some adults require a little less sleep, but I mean, I don't think it would be the end of the world if we all got 9 hours of sleep, 10 hours of sleep.
I'd be a lot less productive, but sure.
Right. So, but again, I think it's in a developing individual, sleep is just the duration is, maybe even more critical. So and it sets them up for good sleep behaviors kind of later in life.
So first things first, make sure the kid's getting enough sleep. And that transition, this is the point of this. The transition from summertime when you can sleep in as late as you want until into school when for some reason we've decided kids have to be in class at 7 a.m.
Yeah.
We'll never understand that, but okay.
Yeah. There's been a major push to try and move that back, right? It's like an ongoing thing.
Absolutely. I don't know how serious the push is, but it made sense once upon a time when the kid had to be home in time to do chores.
Yeah.
But it makes no sense to me that a child needs to be in a classroom at 7 a.m. learning when they probably wouldn't wake up until after that, except for little kids.
Yeah.
I don't know about yours, but mine always got up really early.
They're all different.
Yeah, that's true.
Nothing scarier though when you wake up and they're just standing over you, and they say, "Wake up." Oh my gosh. But yeah, they've all been a little bit different. Earlier, later.
Yeah.
Summer's completely different, of course.
Right. And that's so the transition from summer or fall break or whatever into school, I would submit that the solution there is early and often, that you start pushing that bedtime back and you start having a routine again and going, no. We're going to bed at 9.
Yeah.
We're going to bed at 9. Okay, we're going to bed at 8:45 this week. Next week it's 8:30.
Yeah.
And then it's 8:30 for the rest of the school year.
Yeah. I think
or whatever.
Yeah, in a perfect world, that's definitely what would be recommended. I think there's enough evidence to recommend that. I think it makes sense logically, but it is just hard. It's like a lot of people get done with their family vacations in August and the end of August. And so, it's like a mad dash.
Yeah,
it's like they're going school shopping, they get their supplies, and
Yep.
it's like they're at Target, and the next day they wake up and they're in school. It's like,
Right.
That's like how I kind of remember it.
Well,
It's
and-
just this chaos.
And
But-
my kids just did this to me just recently going, yeah, but this is the last day of summer. Can't we stay up until forever?
right.
It's like, no, that's the whole point is you have to get back into the swing of things, into schoolwork.
Yeah, we usually start like 2 to 3 weeks out.
Yeah.
Of school start. We'll try to get back into routine. But similarly, this is the last thing before summer. Let's go make a trip. And then we want to be good parents, right?
Yeah.
And so let's do one. Let's stay up late one last night. But
Man,
that's tough.
Yeah, it's impractical to look at this stuff and think you're going to hit it 100%. But it is key. So it's not some like massive change as soon as they got to wake up that
But
first
just
day.
like food,
Yeah.
it's not about what you do one time or on a celebratory event. It's about what you do over the long arc, right? That's what's more important.
Right. The other recommendation there that I would say makes sense, and again, you guys would be able to offer more than I could. Routine. So again, getting into this routine soon, often, getting accustomed, like we said, but also what does that routine look like? And so the goal is to have continuity with nap times and meal times, and so that there's just this daily rhythm that can occur. And so specifically with a bedtime routine or like a wind down period,
not wine. Don't give your kids wine.
Oh man.
Wine. The brush, book, bed recommendation.
Yes.
So it's what I see my nieces and nephews do. It's what I see. I don't know.
It's what we do.
It's what I feel like I did at some point.
Yep.
Still being recommended, but I still end up on Twitter and Instagram after I do those things, brush, book, bed. Oh, back to
No,
back to
see,
Instagram.
we got to stop that. We got to stop that. No kids on Twitter. That's a terrible place for them.
Right, definitely.
Or X or
but
whatever
as the
it's called
adult, even as like X, X. The key is setting the example as the adult. I'm the bad example because I do it all well, and then I throw it out the window at the last second. I fumble the bag, so to speak.
Yeah.
In those last moments. But anyways,
So you're working on that.
I'm working on
gonna help
this.
you with that
It's
transition.
like back to school, but I'm not going back to school. It's just
It's the rest
back
of
to
your
the
life.
podcast. It's the rest of my life.
Yep.
You mentioned screen time.
Yep.
Pretty straightforward. But yes, establishing that routine, absolutely critical, because that's something that when they're 12, 14, 16, 18 off to college, it's like they at least have years and years and years of being fairly compliant and comfortable with that sort of process.
Sleep
that they're
hygiene.
gonna need. Sleep hygiene. Again, all stuff that we talked about. The other thing with sleep as it relates to back to school is that as parents or providers, the key word is to recognize. And so pay attention to these sorts of things so that you can eventually maybe bring them to your pediatrician or some sort of provider. But basically looking out for snoring or loud breathing, like really serious stalling before bed or resisting. As the teacher all of a sudden, as your child went back to school, mentioning issues with alertness and those sort of things, stuff that may be reflective of like, yeah, it's just a difficult transition and blah, blah, blah. But like try to take that serious. It could be related to sleep. It could be related to that routine that you have or have not built.
Yeah.
Or showed them by example. Those are all parts to keep in mind. And again, don't be afraid to bring those up as you start to recognize them, as they, sequence back into school.
That makes sense. What else in lifestyle?
Exercise is a big one.
Yep.
Sleep and exercise we could talk about all day, but summer is generally a time where, their kids are out in the neighborhood. They're playing an organized sport. They were swimming. You belong to the pool or your whatever, playgrounds and all that kind of fun stuff, summer camps. Now, as you go back to school, there's potentially, for a given child, like the chance that there's going to be a decrease in overall activity. So however you can bridge that gap to ensure that they're still, moving as much as they were in the summer, that's key. So already starting to plan their fall and winter activities would be recommended, in my opinion, whether that's a sport or another sort of camp or nightly activity or after school activity that they can stay at and take, partake in. Now, before I go any further, the explicit recommendation as far as the amount goes, so for children 6 and older, that is to get 60 minutes or more of activity per day. And so blocks of like 10, 15, 5 minutes, 25 minutes, all of those count. So it doesn't have, I know it's hard sometimes to just get 60 minutes straight.
Yeah.
But if it's 20 minutes after school and then they do their homework and they go back out for 30 minutes, like they really, 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 really want to try and hit that 60 minutes every day.
And we're talking running, jumping, climbing trees. We're talking about doing things that are somewhat physically strenuous for a child.
Exactly. And so within that 60 minutes, yes, that covers the aerobic based exercises, but we can't forget about the muscle and bone strengthening activities as well. And so that is more climbing, body weight stuff, hanging, push-ups, swinging. They could even do some structured exercises. They could do planks. They could do sit-ups. They can jump, skip, hop, all those sorts of things that do more for, your tendons and muscles and bones than just, sort of, playing kickball, for example. Right. So there is like the next layer to that too.
Makes sense.
So exercise is key. I don't know how evidence-based this is, but there is something to be said about doing enough to sort of tire them out. So once at the end of the day, it's just, they're just ready to shut it down.
Yeah. No, I mean, that's 100% accurate. I think
You ever just shut it down, Josiah?
I shut it down. I shut down.
Yes.
The kids sometimes, not always, but
yeah, keeping kids active enough that they go to bed relatively easily is always nice.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, organized sports are great, I guess, in that regard, because it's just like a very, structured period that they'll have to do that. But again, you're not playing basketball or soccer or karate 6 nights a week.
Right.
I mean, that's still going to be enough you're still moving the needle, but that's not 60 minutes a day. Like there's still going to have to be targeted watching.
Yeah.
Hey, go get active, do this, set it up for them, play with them.
Yep.
Be the example with the routine.
Yep.
With sleep, be the example with moving around. You know what I mean?
I think that's
test their mile time, test their 1 rep max bench press, test their.
Oh, my kids love that. My kids love that.
Yeah.
Let's see how fast you could do this. You know, they're boys, so they love the challenge.
That's it.
Test their VO2 max. Just hook them up. That wraps up lifestyle and behavior
Those
stuff.
are the primary concerns there.
Yeah. So moving on to nutrition.
Yeah.
We should do a whole separate talk about some of this. This was interesting.
Yeah.
Just like the school, like how school foods work and how menus are built. And is it really that bad? Is it good? Is it better than packing lunch? Is it, it's just really, in my mind, nutritionally, it was like, man, that school food is so bad for you.
Right.
As soon as you go back to school, you're going to be eating junk, chicken patties. It's all bad. Vending machines, extras lines, cookies, iced tea, like all that kind of stuff was like, wow, I just remember school as this really unhealthy place. But a lot of like smaller scale studies actually look at the majority of kids who pack their lunch. I think I was the exception to the rule with some of the stuff my mom packed because it was my dad telling my mom what to pack me. But a lot of the lunches that were packed, a lot of the lunches that were packed were worse.
Yeah, I believe it.
More hyperpalatable foods, more calories, more food quantity, just even worse than what's provided by the schools. And not to go too far.
No, we can talk about this sometime.
Yeah.
And it is a Herculean task that schools have to do, providing a theoretically well-rounded meal for like $2. What did the average school lunch is like $2.75 or something like that per child, and they have to make 1,000 of these things. They have to do it every single day.
Yeah,
that's a virtually impossible task. Without using, and you want to make something that kids will actually eat.
Exactly.
So
yeah, this may surprise you. Estimates place the number of home-packed lunches at U.S. schools at around 40% of all school meals, with their packed content found to have higher caloric value and a lesser nutritional value than in-school lunches.
Wow.
And so, yeah, like I went and looked at our local school's menu. Yeah. And at a glance, it doesn't seem like it's that healthy, but I guess it's sort of meeting those nutrient guidelines. Like there's literal federal guidelines there. So the way I understood it is there's like this National School Lunch Program, which allows for free lunches and, some help in that regard for families. Now, in order for a school to qualify for that, they have to meet these federal nutrition guidelines at each meal. So breakfast has to offer this amount of protein, fat, and carbs, and these micronutrients, and this amount of fruit, servings of fruit and vegetables.
Sure.
Certain types of fruit juice and low-fat milk versus non-fat milk versus regular fat milk. There's all these little things they got to meet. So I was still surprised to see that just like looking at these meals, there's still like chicken patties and Uncrustables and cheesy breadsticks, like all of those things are still on there. Those are still processed foods.
Yeah.
So I think that if you were trying to be like above and beyond with your child or as a provider, you could pack lunches, but that's a tall order for a parent. It's a taller order than I realized because not everybody knows what exactly should go in there.
Well, and same thing. You're still dealing with a child who may or may not eat everything you send them with.
Yep.
Depending on the day.
Yeah.
Well, you liked this yesterday. How come you don't like this today anymore?
And then that same study that I mentioned, they, mentioned that kids don't tell their parents that they threw their food away. And, they accounted for all the waste of the packed lunch and the waste of the school lunch. And, like they're just, as a kid, you're reluctant to go home and disappoint your parents that you threw away the apple and the peanut butter sandwich, but you ate the fruit roll up
Right.
and the apple juice. Like, I mean,
So, okay. So these are all the challenges.
Yeah.
Every parent knows these things. What can they do to improve the situation?
yeah, I would say the big thing again that's going to remain constant throughout all these recommendations is you will still make the biggest impact being an example as the guardian.
Yep.
So with that said, however you can better equip yourself, by listening to this podcast or listening to others, you
like that.
You learn what makes up a healthy plate. You learn what makes up a health promoting dietary pattern. You begin to do those things yourself. You take grocery shopping trips a little more seriously. You involve the kids with those trips.
Yeah.
You involve the kids with cooking, and you teach them how to do some basic things in the kitchen. And, it's not maybe going to be a home run in your back to school steps. You're not going to knock this out of the park and your kid loves, broccoli and grilled chicken in their lunch all of a sudden at age 9.
Yeah, right.
I don't think that's realistic either, but you're cultivating a set of behavioral skills, cultivating an environment for the child to make good decisions when they're at school, to make good decisions when they're home, so however you can involve them, I think is the biggest thing. Now, the one thing that kids do have going for them, and this isn't always true, but in general, based on some of the research, especially when we're talking about younger children, maybe like 6, 7, 8, that age, 5, even younger, actually, they're better. They're just seemingly better able to regulate their appetite and match their energy consumption to their energy expenditure much better than adults can. And so you ever notice it's not really like when you're eating or you're feeding your kids or you're sitting with kids eating, they know when they're done.
Yeah.
Like they're not, you are the one, I'm the one that's like psh, psh, picking this, I'm going to eat it till it's gone. Like, you're feeling more of these social cues and these, emotional cues around eating. Whereas the kid is like, boom, like I feel like I'm good. Where's the jungle gym? Where's the kickball? Like, I'm going to go tackle my brother. Like, it's like immediately it's over. And so I thought that this, sort of this example here spoke volumes to, again, it's not that they can't control how much they're eating, but they're not able to make good choices. So they can control the volume, but they can't necessarily say, okay, I have the choice between the apple and the Oreo pie. Like they're obviously going to take the Oreos,
right?
100 out of 100 times.
Yeah.
So how do you as the parent set the environment up so there's less of those choices, not depriving them of those choices, but just knowing that they're going to generally be able to control their appetite for the most part. It's going to get worse as they get older.
Yeah.
So the more that you can sort of control their access to the super sweet stuff and the extra tasty stuff,
you're
going to see your kid maybe progress at a very steady, healthy, incremental weight change.
That makes sense.
So,
that makes sense.
I don't know.
So for food, for back to school, the idea is control what you can.
Yeah.
And what needs to be controlled. And in this case, it's primarily types and selections, not quantity, that the kids should do a pretty good job. Most kids.
Self-governing. Yep.
There you go. Self-regulating, self-governing their own appetites. And controlling the meals you can too, in terms of, even if you have to, if school lunches are going to be the thing and that's just the way it is, no big deal. Controlling breakfast, controlling dinner.
Yeah.
Making sure that they're getting the foods they need, those meals.
Yeah. I almost had like a change in heart about school lunches.
Yeah.
It's weird. Like I thought, like you got to pack your lunch. You're crazy if you give your kids that food. Like, that's kind of, I don't know. That's just the way I sort of was interpreted my lunch being. I never went to school without a packed lunch. Like as soon as I can remember, I used to have to beg to be able to buy school lunch. So like this is very deep rooted in me. And so the more I look at it, like it makes sense financially.
Yeah.
Their options are limited. And the quality of a Bosco stick, breadstick thing, is probably not the best, but they're getting a guaranteed amount of fruit, guaranteed amount of vegetables. They have restricted access to like vending machines and stuff.
Yeah.
So if you're the parent that's giving like fruit snacks and Teddy Grahams and, I don't know, Twinkies,
Yeah.
then dude, come on.
Maybe you should
Just let the school do it.
Feed your child.
Let
They
the
might
school do it.
Do a better
Seriously.
job. That
I
makes
think
sense.
I think it's a viable option, but if you want to be an OG, then you learn as the parent
Yeah.
to, hammer these meals.
Which is the better option
Yeah.
because you need to model it. That makes sense. Okay, so fun story about vending machines. The middle school that my youngest son was going to didn't have those things. And so the kids didn't have access to soda or Twinkies. And my entrepreneurial youngest son saw an opening in the market and he started, this is so bad. He started going to Walmart or wherever, and he'd buy, a box of Twinkies and some candy, and he would take it to school and sell it. And he knew exactly how much he would make per snack. He was making, 57 cents per one of these and 38 cents per one of those. And he knew that this, soda is heavy and takes up a lot of room in the bag. And so you've got to make a premium on that. So we can't really do those. So we're going to get rid of that. We're going to replace it. He had this whole business going for like a year and a half. I'm not kidding. I didn't give him any, allowance or anything like that. Barely had to give him commission for doing chores around the house because that kid had a side business, a side hustle as the black market of junk food at the middle school. And I feel a little bit bad. So if your child went to middle school with mine, I'm very sorry. The rule was always, if you ever get caught, it's over.
You promoted this.
Capitalism.
I allowed this.
You promote what you allow.
Fair enough. And I allowed it until he got caught. When he finally got caught, it was the end of the year. They have a big field day at the end of the year. And we joke about him being Mr. Krabs from SpongeBob because he's all about money. And he just loves the delta of I bought it for this and I can sell it for that. He's fascinated by it. So anyway, end of the school year. This is 7th grade. He had 3 big bags, his backpack and 2 other bags full of junk food. And it was everything.
Contraband.
It was everything.
Bringing duffel bags full of contraband.
Because it was going to be the field day.
That's how Josiah shows up to podcast days.
Bro.
So he managed to sell, I think he made something like $40 that day before he got caught. Some teacher, lots of teachers saw him doing it and nobody cared. But one teacher decided she didn't like it. And so she confiscated all his stuff and tried to take his money. But then the vice principal was like, it's fine. You keep the money. We'll keep the snacks and give them back to you at the end of the school day. And so that's what happened. And I was like, I'm sorry, son, we're done now. But congratulations on a really good run there.
I'm surprised you guys didn't do like some sort of like video rendition of him like getting busted and
No.
like a short film.
We could
That'd
make
be
that
hilarious.
Reenactment.
Yeah. That'll be
That's a great story.
Okay, so let's bring it back to the subject at hand. Mm-hmm. Helping kids, supporting kids into fall, into winter. We're talking about immune issues. We're talking about being around all those snot factories that are schools.
Yeah.
What else can be done in terms of the miscellany category here to help support?
Yeah, so supplement wise specifically, I would say for brevity sake, like you could just go to our website, look up more of the immune, sort of the immune-based protocols and such. If there's a specific need, specific illnesses and such, you could do that. Fundamentally, I would say I would look at maybe 4 products.
Okay.
So probiotics, multivitamin, omega-3s, and protein supplementation.
Okay.
So 4 categories there, 4 products. Probiotics, I think it's a little controversial as far as like the role in immune system benefit and all that kind of stuff. Not a lot of downside in using it, especially if your child is a little more susceptible to GI issues, if they've had diarrhea, infectious diarrhea, antibiotic use.
Yeah.
Adjusting to new foods. I don't know. It seems as though the probiotics or the flora specifically is always nice to have on hand in the event that some of that kind of stuff happens. You can use the probiotic daily. You can open a capsule mix it in food, mix it in a drink if they can't take capsules. But that's something good to have on hand. Probiotics and flora.
If your kid doesn't like kimchi and sauerkraut.
Right. Yes, and
Which, I mean,
Greek yogurt.
What kid doesn't love those things?
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, I do, but...
I know, they are good. Yeah, so that would be one.
Okay.
Multivitamins, another area of debate for sure. Now, with children, there are definitely going to be, generally speaking, some dietary gaps to fill.
Yes.
And so a multivitamin serves to, from a micronutrient standpoint, serves to help acknowledge that. There's still no replacement for the actual foods, but this is one way to potentially make a intervention, so to speak.
And we have a kid's version of that, don't we?
Yes. And so it's like a gummy. They don't taste bad. It's not like the nasty, big yellow horse pill that people associate a multivitamin with. So again, you're just filling the gap in terms of micronutrients. There's, kids are eating a lot of processed foods. There's a lot of picky eating going on. Again, they're tasty. We have Nordic berries too, which definitely taste good. And maybe like this, I don't know. I just thought of this, but having supplements in the mix for a kid, like I always kind of remember like, oh, my dad's taking these supplements. He's taking them with like his eggs, and he's just ate the spinach and did this, he did that. He took his fish oil. Like it was just a part of this like rapport of health promoting behavior.
Yeah.
I'm not saying that if you take supplements, you are on the panacea of health.
Right.
But what I am saying is that, I don't know, it's just part of sort of part of this health promoting idea.
You're modeling what's important.
Yes. And so again, maybe you could interpret that negatively. Like, what are they taking? What kind of stuff are they pulling out of the cabinet to take?
Sure.
Whatever. So it could be, that's maybe like bizarre, like when you're talking about supplements and stuff. But again, I very much associate that with just this, that's one piece of the health puzzle.
Right.
You can fill in some nutritional gaps. You have some GI issues. I know I have my probiotics. You don't eat a lot of, which is a segue into the next recommendation. We don't eat a lot of salmon. We don't eat a lot of fish.
Yep.
So we have our omega-3 oils.
Yep.
Our omega-3 chewables, or omega-3 whatever. So
excellent that's brain health, anything neurological, and cholesterol, right?
Can be, yes.
Okay.
Like mainly triglycerides.
Okay.
But again, the issue is there's going to be a gap potentially with the omega-3s that are being consumed in the diet. Not eating a ton of fish. If it's not an egg product that has extra omega-3s added to it, or they're not eating sardines and anchovies,
which are great in Barcelona.
Great.
Just for the record, the anchovies in Barcelona, life-changing.
They are.
So good.
I think we brought some back when we were there.
I definitely have eaten
like
more since I got home, and they were not as good.
I just took them out of the can, threw them in my...
That's disgusting. You threw that suitcase out. Okay, no, sorry. Focus. Back at it.
Put them in my pocket.
This is gonna be
It's a good on-the-go snack. Omega-3s, again, same principle as the multivitamin, to keep it simple. Like, yes, it has these potential roles for, neurologic function and attention and memory. And I think even a lot of that is mixed as far as the data go. So to not even go into that,
that's not even the point.
We just know that there's a strong potential that your kid is not consuming enough omega-3s potentially.
Right.
This is something to consider. And it's an easy way to, you can do liquid, you can do these gummies, you can do something that is also fairly easy for them to ingest as a young kid.
Sure.
The final recommendation would be protein supplementation. And this is one that's popped up on a few episodes and a few different recommendations. You can do whey, you can do plant-based. I think this is such a no-brainer because, again, coming back to this idea of filling gaps, not that you even need to give your kid a full scoop of protein.
Right.
Just enough to mix into a smoothie. You make some ice cream with it. You can get creative with protein pancakes. Like, you can do these things that if you really have a picky eater on your hands, like the protein powder is the basis of good stuff that you can do, good stuff you can make for them. If they're playing sports and they refuse to eat after, then hey, just This is 8 ounces of water. It's chocolate. It's vanilla. Tastes really good. Get a little extra protein. No sugar. No extra carbs. No extra fat. Just something to bolster these dietary gaps.
My daughter she doesn't like meat, and she gets our protein powder on the regular. I'll make some for myself, and then I make some extra for her sometimes, and she'll drink it, no problem.
Yeah, exactly.
It's a good idea
for sure, and that's definitely something I remember growing up too. Is like, I went to the gym with my dad, and then we came back, and I saw him making the shake. I got to make the shake. Nice. What's in the shake? And then eventually, I'm like, he was putting stuff in the shake that I don't need or I don't want, and so then eventually you do your own thing.
Yep.
But it's a good sweet way to promote health.
Love it. All right. Well, that is it for us today. All of our products are available on the website. That is askjoedimatteo.com, askjoedimatteo.com. That is where you can find anything we mentioned, all the supplements and protein additives and all that jazz. No chicken, pharma chicken, Franken chicken yet.
Franken chicken.
We're not there yet. But you can also sign up for our mailing list. You can find out about anything new coming up with this show. And you can listen to the original podcast that started all of this, Ask Joe DiMatteo, there on the website. If you have a question, we want to hear about it. Questions@askjoedimatteo.com. That's the place to email us. Also, let's see, show notes are going to be available down below in the description. So any articles we reference, anything like that, all available down there. And if you have learned something from this episode, if you know someone that could use some of this information, please share it with them. If you're listening on Apple Podcasts, give it a 5-star rating and review it. It makes all the difference, I promise. If you're watching on YouTube or Rumble, any kind of thumbs up or likes, we love those. Leave questions down in the comments if you have anything else you want to ask, or if you've got any suggestions on how to help your kids get back into the swing of things, leave them down there. Thank you so much. Josiah Schweinberg, I don't know if I should thank you or not.
No,
was it that bad?
No, it was
no,
good.
thank you.
Okay, good.
Running cameras. Michael Depesh, our editor. Joyce Gibb, our nurse practitioner who handles private consultations. Diane Silverman, who handles products. Terry does scheduling. Cecilia does distribution. That's Dante DiMatteo. I'm Tyler Andrews. Thanks so much. We'll see you next week.